Number 1. A strange man tried to hug me on the sidewalk. Before the story begins, I would like to clarify that I'm writing these lines during the 3rd week of April in the year 2024. This encounter happened to me a few months ago. For context, I am a male and I'm 18 years old, and I live about 1.5 kilometers away from a shopping center, or just under a mile. The route I take usually requires me to turn 2 corners and walk straight for the rest of the journey. Although pretty early on the walk, there is a tall apartment block to the left of the pathway along the main road. I would say it has about 4 or 5 levels. I live in a shady area, and previously the apartment block had a case of a stabbing that killed a woman a year before my story takes place. I witnessed the cleanup crews hosing the area down when that happened. This caused me to be pretty wary of the area in general. On this day, in particular, I needed to go to the shopping center to pick up a couple supplies. I noticed as I started walking the pathway of the straight road that the sky was pretty dark. It was early in the afternoon, so this meant a storm was on the way. Not a drop of rain fell as I made my way to the shop. Once I had arrived, I picked up what I needed and I went window shopping for a while. When I was satisfied, I exited through the door I had originally entered and began walking back home. I made it to the final set of traffic lights that was probably a 7-minute walk from my house. The rain started to tickle at first, and then after that, it poured pretty heavily. 3 minutes later, I could see the apartment block about 20 meters ahead to the right. The rain was still pouring down, and so the visibility wasn't that great. But what I could make out was a man in a dark green poncho. He had the hood of the poncho over his head and a big grin on his face for some reason. As I got closer and closer to him, I didn't like the feeling I was getting. He reached his arms out, almost as if he was attempting to bring me into his embrace, keeping that same smile he had before. The man was 5 meters distance from me when I took the opportunity to cross onto the median strip of the main road. I noticed his glance follow me as I crossed into the middle grassy patch. Even though there was no traffic, he decided not to chase me down and continued walking along the pathway as he kept eye contact with me. The thought of what might have happened if I walked into his arms still frightens me today. Even if he didn't mean any harm and was not trying to grab me, I still don't like the vibe I got from him. And when I reached the middle of the road, I felt safer and relieved, especially considering he didn't attempt to follow behind me. TLDR, on my walk back home from a shopping trip, a man in a green poncho stared me down with a smile on his face and his arms out. I had a feeling he was going to hurt me, so I crossed the road to avoid him. He continued to stare into my eyes as I tried to get away from him.
That's terrifying. Do you keep any safety precautions on you, Aka? Pocket knife, pepper spray, taser? If not, please start doing so.
Unfortunately, in Australia, self-defense tools are unlawful. For things like this, I think it's a good idea that people learn how to give a low blow directly between the legs of men being inappropriate. I hope you're okay. And the worst thing is that it is really sad that some women could use such knowledge. Story number 2. Trafficking attempt in Tokyo. Good morning, everyone. I have posted on the sub once before about an event that happened when I was a small child, but it's been a while. Hopefully I do this the correct format. This happened a month ago in Shinjuku, Tokyo, Japan. I'm writing these lines in the year 2023 in the month of June. I am a 28-year-old white American woman from Alaska. I'm slightly above average height for a woman my age, and I am by no means tiny, though I'm not particularly fat or buff either. My point of mentioning that is that I wouldn't be an easy target to just scoop up and kidnap. I also have a lot of distinctive identifying features. My waist-length hair is currently half blonde, half dark brown, and I have visible tattoos all over my upper body, including on both arms. Last month, I was in Japan for 2.5 weeks with my fiancé and some family, and several of our mutual friends. The whole group was about 12 people. I speak Japanese fluently, and I am a well-traveled person and consider myself to be pretty street smart and able to take care of myself. So while I did not wander off alone much on this trip, I wasn't concerned if it did have to go somewhere by myself. It was Friday night during Golden Week in Tokyo, the day before we were leaving to come back to the States, and our group was going to go out drinking on our last night. The area we were staying in wasn't the nicest, but it wasn't particularly bad either. Just more dirty than other areas in Tokyo, and with a lot more tourists, and more homeless people, etc. Each night, when we would go out, the men in our group would be openly propositioned by prostitutes, and there were often people just passed out on the streets. Things like that. So on the last night, we were all going to meet up in front of our hotel to go out. A large, nice hotel in the main city center, and I happened to be the first person there. Now, while I wasn't with my group and the people I know, I was by no means alone. There were hundreds of people around, as this was a very populated area, and I was standing on the sidewalk in front of the hotel. A man suddenly approached me, and the first thing that put my guard up was how close he got to me. Again, this was a crowded area, but by no means crowded or noisy enough that he needed to be 5 inches away from me, which he was. He was black and looked to be around my age, probably between 25 and 35. He immediately started asking me questions, and I got more suspicious on the edge with each one. This is how the conversation went.
Hello, where are you from?
I am from Alaska.
Oh, American?
Yes. Where are you from?
Ghana, are you here alone?
Me? No. I am with about 15 people, including my husband and my dad. They are in that shop right there. In reality, I was with 12 people.
What hotel are you staying at?
I don't know the name of it. It's across the city. Also a lie. As we were standing in front of the hotel, I was saying at
How old are you?
35. I'm 35. Also a lie. I was trying to say I was as old as possible while having it still be believable.
Right. Come with me.
Yes, no thanks. At this point, I began to turn to walk away.
Yes, come with me. We'll take something.
Nope, bye. I then began hurriedly walking towards one of the nearby shops.
Take something. Wake up in paradise.
Luckily, he did not follow me, and I waited for my group inside the store that I went into to get away from him. I immediately messaged our group, and my fiancé and another of the men came down immediately. This incident was particularly scary because of a couple of the people on the trip with us didn't have this radar for this kind of thing, and it makes me feel ill to think what might have happened if they had been the one being propositioned instead of me. Also, I know I should have stopped talking to the guy sooner. I was just kind of frozen, and at the beginning I thought he might just be a regular guy trying to hit on me, which I planned to kindly turn him down. Asking where I'm from didn't strike me as too weird on its own, but his next lines of questioning were enormous red flags. Notice that in that whole conversation, he never once asked my name, or if I was married with someone, which you would expect someone might do if they are just trying to hit on you. Also, keep in mind that this happened in one of the safest countries in the world. Moral of the story is that you can never be too careful, especially as a woman. Keep your wits about you and don't feel bad for blowing off strangers. Also, if something seems off, don't give out your real information. I shouldn't even have told him the actual state I live in, but luckily I realized that he was sketchy after that and didn't even give him any more real info.
Definitely creepy, but I doubt he was trying to traffic you. Trafficking victims tend to be homeless, runaways, refugees, financially desperate people looking for work, etc. People without social networks who won't be missed. Not tourists from rich countries traveling with their families. He was probably just a random creep trying to pick you up.
Definitely possible, but also the questions he was asking were what gave me trafficking vibes. I'm glad I'll never know his true intentions.
There's been a creepy guy going around Tokyo, verbally attacking people and live streaming it. Some people have started to fight back. I don't know what's wrong with people. I'll provide a link for reference, in case you feel like checking it.
Story number 3. 3 people dressed in all black with white face masks. The original post was deleted due to wall of text rules, so it feels a bit silly reposting, but I still want to share nonetheless, as it was a very creepy encounter. I'm writing this during the last days of April of the year 2024. This happened to me last night. I was almost home after a long day of traveling, and it was approximately 1 a.m. as I rounded a corner and I stopped at the intersection right near my home. The light was red, and as I slowed to a stop out of the corner of my eye, I saw 3 people on the sidewalk. They were all dressed in black and wearing white face masks or face paint, or a combination of the two. One was crouched on the ground, while the other 2 were standing crooked. They were still as statues when I came to a stop, but when I looked at them, they all started crawling and walking towards me. I was exhausted, and apparently my instinct in moments of terror is to just laugh and shake my head like I was in on the joke. They were super close to my car, but thankfully the light turned green and I was able to get out of there before they reached my car. Since you could see the corner of my house from the intersection, I ended up just driving for quite a while and then turning around once it felt like enough time had passed so that they wouldn't follow my car, pulling into the street I live in. I imagine it was just some teens playing a prank. But afterwards, I was thinking about it being a school night and most people wouldn't be having sleepovers in the middle of the week. I'm debating if it's worth calling a non-emergency line to report it, just in case. Regardless, I shan't be going out past sundown for quite some time, and I'll likely invest in some door lock reinforcements.
Absolutely should have called it in on your cell phone when it happened. If you felt that creeped out to drive around for a while after.
Well, at the time it didn't seem like an emergency, and felt more like it would be a misuse of the 911 system, to call it in as urgent. I called the non-emergency line to report the incident right when they opened this morning though. If I see something like that again, I'm just going to call the emergency line, considering there's already a reported incident. Thank you for the feedback. Thank you.
They could have just been trying to prank passing cars, or something worse like carjacking, but it is definitely odd. I would have been scared for sure, and you are lucky the light turned. The odds are they are going to do it again, so I would call it in. Even if they don't manage to catch them, it sets up a trial of their modus operandi.
I definitely assumed the former, thinking the trio was just trying to put their own spin on something similar to a scary ghost prank. But you're right, it could have been more nefarious in nature, and it could be repeated. I did call the non-emergency line to report it, especially since over the last few nights I've had a hard time falling asleep, and I have been incessantly checking all my doors and window locks at night, knowing that intersection is within view of my living room window. Story number 4. Creepy acts of kindness or possible stalker. So first of all, let me start by saying that I'm dyslexic. So if my spelling or grammar is off, I apologize. I am 25, I'm a woman, and I'm from England. I'm writing these lines in the middle of April in the year 2024. So I've never actually met this person, so I hope this actually go on this Reddit forum. If it can't, please let me know. This started about 5 months ago, and first of all, it was quite a pleasant interaction, but it slowly got worse and more creepy. So it started about November or October. I noticed that my wing mirror on my car had been put inwards. I park a street away from my house, so I have a short walk to my house. My house is on a main road with one drive, and my parents park on the drive. I asked my mother if this was her, as it was a thoughtful thing to do. She refused it was her, and my father also said it wasn't him. So I thought it was a kind soul or thoughtful person. After all, where I park has a lot of older people, and they always say good morning to me when I set off to work. This continues for the months onwards. It has only recently stopped since parking away from that side street. I asked a couple older people on that street, and they said it wasn't them either. At this point, I only wanted to say thank you. So I continued going to work and didn't notice anything else until the winter weather got worse. December 2023 was when the weirdness continued. The frost kicked in, and the snow started on occasions. Since I set off from work at 7 AM, it can be frosty at the time, and I would need to de-ice my car. About mid-December, I remember running late for work. It was 7:15 AM, and I still had not de-iced my car. So I was doing a careful rush to my car, as it was very cold and icy, only to get there and see it had been de-iced for me. I was confused and a little happy, but also shaken. It was a strange feeling. Again, I asked my parents and anyone I saw on this side street. It wasn't any of them. My mom laughed and said, "You might have a secret admirer." Well, it's like she's a fortune teller. The de-icing of my car happened a few times more on very icy days. From January onwards is when it got strange to the point I started parking elsewhere, as mentioned above. About the end of January and the start of February 2024, I saw what I can only describe as homemade food left on top of my car. Don't worry, I did not eat anything. I ended up throwing up this away once I got to work. But I found this situation was getting beyond strange. Around the same time, the first letter or note was left. It was written in what I would describe as doctor handwriting. It was basically asking if I enjoy being treated like, and I quote, the princess I deserve to be treated like. I brought this home and showed my parents and they didn't like this at all. My dad said he was going to start parking on the street and I can park on the drive for a while. I said that would be a good idea. However, if this person was looking for my car, then he would know which house was mine. My dad agreed, but also pointed out that he or she may have already been watching me and may actually already know where I live. He stated the main thing was me walking home from my car to the house at 8:15. I worked 12 shifts. He stated he would sort the situation out if anything happened. I questioned possibly going to the police, and he stated that they would laugh at us without proof. And he was right, we didn't have anything. I didn't like the idea of parking back on the street, so I didn't. Now it's April. I stopped parking on the drive a few weeks ago, and now I've started parking on a different street, still close to my house. Now nothing has happened since February, and I hope it doesn't, as it is starting to get worse. Do I have a stalker? Or just someone trying to fuck with me? I will try and answer whatever questions you have when I can. So TLDR, too long did not read. Creepy acts of kindness have been happening to me, and it may be the start of a stalker.
No matter their intentions, it's somehow sinister that they have taken pains to avoid you seeing them, while feeling bold enough to touch your car all the time and leave personal things there. Especially that note, yikes. Hopefully this is the end of it.
Especially sinister when you consider the advantage the stalker has somehow knowing that vehicle belongs to OP. I seriously wonder if that person has a vantage point and derives gratification over watching OP react to their unprompted, unwelcome gestures. Maintaining anonymity is a way to leverage control of the situation. The note reeks of someone perpetuating a fantasy without your consent, with your involvement at their will. OP, that's why your instincts are raising alarms. Get a close-range motion detecting car cam, file a police report and include a note or a photo of it if you have it, and ask your friendly neighbors to keep an eye out for you and your car. Stay safe, your concerns are valid.
Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. It was enough for one lifetime. And for the people thinking or wondering, I do have an ex-fiancé, but I think even he would have to sink to a new low to do that. Thank you. Story number 5. Crazy lady try calling CPS. Crazy woman threatening to call CPS. This is really creepy, but it was scary for sure. No, I'm not the parent in this situation, but rather the kid. This was who knows how many years ago. And I'm writing this in April 2024. I was young, maybe 7 or 8. Think 7. I was with my 2 older siblings, my little bro and older sis. We are all 3 years apart. Anyways, we were all in the car waiting for our mom, who had gone inside a Pizza Delight to pick up our food, which she had pre-ordered beforehand. This was in Byers Lake, I think. We were only alone in there for a minute, and I was tired, so I was half asleep against the window. I was abruptly woken up to an aggressive and loud banging on our car window. My sister, maybe 10 at the time, was sitting shotgun and I was in the back seat diagonal from her. And my little brother, probably 4, was beside me. We all immediately looked to where the sound came from, and we saw a 40 to 50-year-old looking lady. I don't remember much about her, and it was late out. But her hair was kind of frizzy, thin and crazy looking. It was silvery blonde. She had a receding hairline and was sweating profusely on her forehead. She looked a little on the heavy side, and her face was practically pressed up against the glass, and she had an intense, crazy look. She held her phone up against the window, my sister's window, with the white emergency dial screen up, and yelled something at us. I can't remember what. My mom was literally walking back to the car when this happened and was like, "What the actual fuck?" So she immediately gets into the car, and the woman runs around to her door and grabs it, yelling at her about how she's a terrible person for leaving her kids alone in a car and that she was gonna call CPS. Our mom explains to her that she was only gone for 5 minutes maximum and that she had a 10-year-old in the car with a phone. The car was locked and she could see the car from where she was in the restaurant. The lady keeps screaming at my mom though, and grabs my mom's wrist. So my mom, who is in the military, immediately rips her hand off her wrist and slams her door shut, rolls down the window to give her the bird, and books it. The woman was screaming the whole time and looked genuinely insane and terrifying. Anyways, we later dubbed her Pizza Karen around 2020, when we were reminiscing about the event and laugh about it now. But yeah, that's my story. I hope it temporarily fulfilled your boredom.
That woman was wildly inappropriate, and your mother isn't responsible for the fact that other children might be mistreated. People act like the system is a safe place for children. I'm rolling my eyes when I say that.
Holy shit, nowadays? She was grabbing a pizza. She walked in and out, dragging 3 kids into the pizza delight to pay, and pick up pizza is over the top. Like 2 steps in the door, it would have taken longer to get them all out of their car seats.
Yeah, exactly, man. Like lady needed to chill out. X1000. Story number 6. The man in the yellow raincoat. So this is a story that happened to my mom's friend in Korea about 10 years ago, and every time I hear this story, I still get the chills. For you to have a notion of time of the events in this story, I'm writing these lines in the year 2013, in November. Yeah, you read that right. You're probably listening to this at some point 10 years later or more. So my mom's friend lived in an apartment complex in Seoul. She was a stay-at-home mother with a young daughter, and her husband worked during the days. One day, she was coming home from running errands with her daughter and got into the elevator in her building. When she got in, she noticed that there was a man wearing a cap and a yellow raincoat, and he kept his head low so that she couldn't really see his face. She immediately felt really uneasy, and she made her daughter stand to her side, furthest away from the man. What made her feel even more comfortable was that when she pressed the button for her floor, there was no other lead number. And on top of that, she noticed that he was carrying something wrapped inside with newspaper close to his side. Things started to click in my mom's friend's head, and she started to panic and decided to take out her cell phone and pretend she was calling home to her husband, who was obviously really not at home and at work. She started saying things like,
"Oh, I'm on the elevator and about to get off. Can you get the door for me?"
and making it seem like her husband was waiting at home. When the elevator did reach her floor, I think she lived on the 12th floor or something, she quickly got off and grabbed her daughter and started to walk as fast as she could to her apartment. She noticed that the man also got off on her floor and was slowly following her down the hallway. When my mom's friend got to her door, she started to bang on it and shout,
Hey there, I'm home. Please open the door.
and kind of pretended like he was coming to answer the door. Upon seeing this, the man in the yellow raincoat started to walk away back towards the elevator. When he seemed to be far away enough, my mom's friend quickly picked up her daughter and slid open her door's passcode thingy. This is usually how people get into their homes in Korea, and started to frantically punch in her key code. But the problem was that the buttons would make sounds, so the man knew that no one was going to answer the door for her, and he turned around and started to run back towards her. My mom's friend, at this point, was practically screaming, and when she finally got her door to open, the first thing she did was throw her daughter in through the door. When she got in herself, she saw that the man was pretty much inches from the door, but she managed to shut it and lock it before he could wedge his hand or weapon into the door. Afterwards, looking through the door's peephole, she saw that the man was walking away towards the elevator. Several months later, my mom's friend was watching the news and there was a coverage on the capture of a serial killer named Yoo Young-chul, who used to kill a lot of prostitutes. She told my mom that she could never forget the dread she felt when she saw the too familiar yellow raincoat and hat that he was wearing when apprehended. And added to that, here's a wiki page on Yoo Young-chul in case anyone is curious. It also details all of his killings. Just for clarification, why does his birthday have to be right after mine?
Was it even raining outside?
I don't think so. From what I heard, the raincoat and the hat were his uniforms for his murders.
Ah, Seoul. The creepers in Seoul are really, well, creepy. I like South Korea, it's a decent place to live. But damn it, the creepers and the traffic.
Tell me about it. I used to visit as a child, and one time I was walking the streets with my parents and noticed that a rough hand was holding my hand. I looked up and thought it was my dad, but it turned out to be some random grandpa who was smiling at me with one tooth. I flipped shit and ran to my dad, who was talking to my mom a few feet ahead.
Absolutely terrifying. I'm glad she and her daughter made it out okay. By the way, when I read her title, I immediately thought of Low Men in Yellow Coats. And that's why I read this. I'm not disappointed.
I never thought about that, but now I can see why my title might have grabbed your attention. Thanks for taking up the time to read it.
Absolutely terrifying. I am glad she and her daughter made it out okay. By the way, when I read your title, I immediately thought of Low Men in Yellow Coats. And that is why I read this. I am not disappointed. Wow.
I never thought about that, but now I can see why my title might have grabbed your attention. Thanks for taking up the time to read it. Story number 7. Stepmom saved me from a creepy lady in McDonald's. I was 11 years old when this happened, and I'm currently 24 and I'm a female. And I had been visiting my dad and stepmom over the summer in Saskatchewan, Canada. My dad worked long days during the week, so on her day off, he planned for my stepmom to take my sister, 8 at the time, and I out for a date to get some bonding time with us, as we didn't know her super well yet. She took us to get our nails done, to the mall, and on the way home we stopped at a McDonald's. We planned on eating inside in the restaurant, but it was very busy, so my stepmom asked my sister and I to find a table and wait there while she went to the counter to order our food. I noticed this rough, older-looking woman, possibly 60s or 70s, looking towards the direction of the table my sister and I were seated at. All I could remember is thinking she looked like a drugged-out Susan Boyle. She looked possibly homeless and addicted, so I didn't give her much of a thought, letting her do her own thing, and I just tried to talk to my sister about random stuff. Once my stepmom came back to the table, this woman was seemingly already approaching us and then stopped beside us. She just said hello, so we all kinda said hi back and tried to ignore her. She asked if we were my stepmom's daughters, so she says, "They are my stepdaughters," trying to be simple to kinda shut her down. The lady says we were beautiful girls and begins to walk towards the door. She stops one last time and asked, "How old are they?" We had the impression that she was on her way out, so my stepmom just says to her, 11 and 8. Her eyes lit up and she looked at me with a strange look. "Oh, I've always wanted an 11-year-old. I'd buy her from you." That definitely crossed a line, so my stepmom finally tells her that we are trying to eat lunch and asks her what she is even saying in a somewhat aggressive tone. The lady got one last look at me and then she finally left. She definitely didn't have the money to buy me even if I was for sale. Anyways, lol, so I wasn't worried. I think she was possibly on some drugs and not in the right mind. But knowing my shy ass at 11, I wouldn't have known how to get rid of this lady if she tried to talk to us without my stepmom there. We weren't super close then, but I respected her a lot after that day for being ready to protect us, even in a minor situation like that.
The first sentence of the last paragraph had me laughing hard. Good story, man. People are such creeps. Kids are scared. Messing with them is pure evil. What the hell did she expect? That your stepmom was just gonna sell you in the middle of a busy McDonald's for cash money.
Thank you. Now I wonder if it would be any different if I was with my dad that day instead of her. Maybe she wouldn't have approached at all, as my stepmom is pretty short and probably looked like another kid at first. Lol.
The first sentence of the last paragraph had me laughing hard. Good story, man. People are such creeps. Kids are scared. Messing with them is pure evil. What the hell did she expect? That your stepmom was just gonna sell you in the middle of a busy McDonald's for cash money?
Thank you. Now I wonder if it would be any different if I was with my dad that day instead of her. Maybe she wouldn't have approached at all, as my stepmom is pretty short and probably looked like another kid at first. Lol.
Not trying to scare you, but I think the lady was trying to sex traffic you. I've heard stories about pimps or sex traffickers sending out older women as bait to abduct young women. I'm glad your stepmom defending you and you're safe.
She definitely could have been. I remember being scared when we were leaving that she would be outside ready to grab me. Thank God I don't recall seeing her or any other sketchy people after that one weird encounter.
Creepy. I had one encounter in 9 Amos McDonald's. I had taken my daughter there to eat, because we barely go there, we don't live in a city, and while waiting in a line to order, an older woman came up to me and whispered to me that some guy, I didn't see him, was watching my then 4 and 5-year-old daughter. 5'4", which is 1.62. Another time in the same city, I didn't know many people there, so when outside having a smoke, I heard somebody I didn't recognize call my name. Scared the crap out of me. Usually by myself, so my drivers can have their alone time to go. I go with some couples.
That's so strange. Did you see the person call your name or just hear it? And I'm glad someone noticed the guy staring at your daughter in case it could have become a situation like mine. Or worse.
No, I had my back to the road where the yelling was coming from. And yes, I was grateful to the lady for telling me. I usually am careful when I'm out, but that scared me, being a lone short girl with a child.
Story number 8. Someone is watching me. Updates will be posted at the end. Before the story begins, I would like to clarify that I'm writing these lines during the last days of January in the year 2024. So, I have never posted in the sub, though I have other stories I buried deep until recently, but this is happening in the present. I have had people stalk and follow me before, and because of that, on my true crime addiction, I become supremely paranoid and a solid curtain twitcher. I'm 31 years old and I'm a woman. I reside in an upstairs room that was my first room to myself as a child. I have to leave a bad situation and therefore ended up back in my childhood home. For reference, when my house was built, we were told that the field to our left, with horses and a barn at the time, would one day soon be a development. It was 2000 when we were told that, and it wasn't until 2022 that roads started being formed and foundations laid. I'd already had someone follow me before when I was young. I posted about it, don't know how to link. But I was in a different bedroom next door. My parents put in a free library that's right below my window, and nighttime security lights that are very bright and turn off if you're within like 20 feet of the side of the house. My room is on. I'll admit it, having an open field next to me so long made me accustomed to not closing the curtains when I change, because there was never anyone to watch. Now there is. For the past 2 weeks, the burglar lights next to the free library have been going off late at night. Because my one side of the curtain is open, so I can use my vape. That's the only reason I noticed at all. I didn't think too much at first. We lock all the doors and windows every night, and I'm on the 2nd floor. I also always looked out to see if it was a car, someone walking their dog, or a deer, only to see nothing. To add, they put in a shit ton of streetlights around this area, so visibility is great. But it just kept happening. So last night, I did my usual, and I saw the lights come out of my peripherals. I acted natural, giving full view of the window. I was going to bed. It was about 3 AM. Turning the TV off, closing the window and curtains, turning the light out. Then I ducked down, peering through the curtains to the sidewalk below. I honestly thought I was going to pass out when after a few minutes, maybe 5, someone comes out from the side of my house. All silhouette, dressed in black. They kept their back to me until the light turned off, but I swear I could still see them standing there, looking like they could see me. I called the police, but while I was on the phone with the operator, I saw him run off. There wasn't much they could do, except say that they would have a car drive around and look. My parents are asleep, and I know I have to tell them tomorrow. This scares the crap out of me. If it hadn't been happening for weeks and was a solo incident, I would probably be fine about it. But the fact that the light has been going off without me seeing activity, and what happened tonight, makes me think that this person has been watching me and watching my house. To the person outside my window, let's please never fucking meet. And by the way, here's a small update. I did tell my parents, and at first they brushed me off, claiming I had had a couple drinks and it was late, so I probably just saw someone checking out the library. I then had another conversation about it with just my dad, who said that there had been reports the last couple weeks of car break-ins, and since my car is parked on my side of the street, right outside my window, maybe they were trying to break into it. I pointed out that if he was trying to break into my car, why was he pressed up against the house where he was invisible from my window? And why did he at no point go towards my car? I think I freaked him out enough that we are going to potentially get a camera for that area. Given all the development happening around us, I think it's smart, even without this incident. Thank you all for your advice and replies. I promise I'll update here again if anything happens.
Time for a couple of exterior surveillance cams, my friend. Also, you mentioned you just left an abusive relationship. Any chance this Stalker is a jealous ex? Good luck to you.
We already have one, but just at the front. I don't think it's a jealous ex, but I left home for a very good reason. There are a decent number of people here who at least at one point wanted to do me harm. But it's been 6 years, and not many people know I'm back in town. I would label it to under 10. And since I was born and raised here, I know a lot of people. Honestly, this is why I didn't want to move back, but rock meet hard place.
You can get some cheap dummy cameras and put them up openly. This will make them aware that you are aware of them. While they won't actually take footage, they are inexpensive and the person won't know that. It might not deter them, but the chances are good that it will. If you could afford it, I'd recommend real ones. But I know the pain of poverty sometimes is better than nothing if you can swing it.
I sadly can't at the moment, but this is a good suggestion when I can, and if my family will let me put them up.
Please close the curtains as soon as it starts getting dark.
I'm definitely doing that now. Like I mentioned in the post, outside my window was a field for many years, so I just got used to having it open, as the only people who could see would be the occasional neighbor passing through the blackberry path. Thanks. Sadly, I don't have the money for them at the moment, and my family is telling me I'm overreacting and possibly imagining things, so I doubt I'll buy the cameras either. Hoping to move out somewhat soon, and the place I chose is in a secure building. I just have to find another job or a better one. Update. Someone is watching me. So I posted the first part of this a few days ago. And now I have an unfortunate update. There hasn't been any activity since the night after I originally posted. I was on a phone call the very next night with a friend when I noticed someone standing outside, completely shrouded in darkness. I proceeded to talk loudly about how some creep was watching me, and I better watch out. Stupid, yes, but it seemed to work because all was quiet after that, or so I thought. Tonight was one of my oldest friends' last night in town, so I was out until 9:30 p.m. I drove to friends' home and then myself. Since it was so early, I wasn't that worried, but still alert. I drove up the side of the street he hit on last time, even though it was out of my way, and saw nothing out of the ordinary. I noticed one of the new houses that's being built had its lights on, which I didn't think much of in the moment. Fast forward an hour, and I start hearing a weird loud banging sound across the way. I know it's risky, but I'm not letting some asshole dictate my comfort. And I've also been watching for activity and pretending so I can maybe catch them. So I've kept my window open as usual. Hence why it was so dumb to razz him the other night by talking about someone watching me. But I digress. It stopped, so I wrote it off. Big mistake. Shortly after, I started hearing banging again, but this time I could actually feel it. It was coming from my house. I genuinely freaked out, like Knives Out status, but much more cowardly, cowering on my bedroom floor with my ears pressed to the door and knife in hand. It was a strange, hollow sound that didn't seem like the front door. It wasn't. I once again called 911, describing what's happening and thinking they probably are going to write it off because I sounded crazy. I still feel in shock because this only just happened. Thankfully, the kind dude on the line definitely took me seriously and said someone would be on their way. For the record, the police department is like a 3-minute drive from my house. I ended up tiptoeing downstairs to see, and once again, felt my heart stop. I went to the front door, ducked down, and there wasn't anyone at the front door. Then the banging starts again, and I can tell how close it is. I go to the side window that overlooks the garage, and that's when I saw him. Dressed in black, hood pulled far over his face, banging wildly on the garage door with a fucking crowbar. I honestly don't know why he wasn't using the crowbar to break in, but I'm super glad he didn't, as the door inside the garage that leads into the house is always left unlocked. To say I panicked is a vast understatement. I nearly pissed myself, which I think it's understandable. I'm just standing there, peeking out of the window, watching this guy wail on my garage door with a crowbar, thinking how fucking unhinged he must be and how much I want the cops to get there now, when just like before, he runs off. I quite literally just got done giving a report to the cops that showed up. My family was woken up and had to talk to them as well, as they are the homeowners. And now they are both so freaked out that my dad just ordered for exterior cameras to monitor the house. I don't think it's over yet. This man has some reason he's targeting my house. Possibly me, since he started out by watching outside my window. So to this man, you better hope we never meet. I have a crowbar too. Story number 9. Train creep. I've kept this one inside for nearly 15 years now. Finding the right platform to relieve a burden is nice. I'm writing this in the year 2024, in April. When I was 15, I went to a show in Liverpool, UK with a friend. My friend told me he was staying at a friend's house, so I boarded a 25-minute train home alone. This was the last train home. Around 23:30, I found a seat and stared out of the window as if the city lights faded into peripheral twinkles. Some 5 minutes in, my trance was broken by the soft croak of an older guy, maybe 50, with dusty blonde hair and aviator frame glasses.
Hello, young man. Are you okay? You look lonely.
Shocked and confused, I nodded. I'm okay, thanks.
The name's Dean. Do you like smoking weed and drinking beers? I've got some at my house. Are you stopping at Creole? You could pop in.
And no, I'm getting off at Runcorn. I mistakenly reply, cringing internally. I excuse myself to use the bathroom. As I made my way hastily across the carriage, the twinkling city lights, now replaced by dank fields and semi-urban decay, I peeked back, noticing the man playing with what seemed to be a needle. I speed up to the bathroom and locked the door. It was only 10 more minutes until my stop. The next stop is Runcorn. The next stop is Runcorn. I don't think a digitized train announcement has ever sounded so heavenly. I threw the door open and bolted to the exit. As my feet touched the station floor, I felt a firm grip on my shoulder. Looking back in fear and trying to shake off the grip, I acted fast and instinctively I shouted, "Dad!" at a completely empty on the other side of the gate. The now stumbling backwards Dean let out a
"Oh fuck"
under his breath and ran to the other side of the train, while I ran through the gate, sprinted all the way home and told my parents, who told the police. We never heard anything.
Wow, I don't think I've read a scarier account than yours in this thread. Shouting out that was genius. This guy uses the late night train as his personal hunting grounds.
Thank you. And yeah, that was beyond terrifying.
I'm really sorry that happened to you. It sounded terrifying. Good shout on calling out to your dad. Great intro. Nicely written. You have such a lovely way with words. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I still vividly recall it. And thank you very much. Story number 10. Man waited for me after my friend's shift. I'm staying with my friend, also 23, for a couple of weeks in the town I grew up in. She works at a restaurant. Without giving away too many details about the location, it's a plaza with a river nearby, a movie theater, restaurants, and boutiques. We enter through the parking garage, which has 3 stories, both elevators and stairs. This is important. She had a 6-hour shift, so I decided to do some shopping, listen to music, and walk around before eating at the restaurant my friend works at. I was sitting at the bar on the corner alone, listening to music. A bigger man approached me. He had a security guard beanie on that was incredibly dirty and tattered up. He was muttering, and his eyes were barely open. What I got from his muttering was, "Are you and I like your? Is anyone sitting?" Not sure, but keep in mind it was incredibly muttered. I'm just guessing what he was trying to say. All of this was said while he was switching back and forth between looking into my eyes and staring at my chest. I told him multiple times I couldn't understand what he said. After a bit of back and forth, I put the headphones back around my neck and he left me alone. I told my friend about what happened immediately. I tried to shake it off, hoping it was an isolated incident. If this is where the story ended, I wouldn't be writing this, unfortunately. About an hour later or so, I see someone approach the bar to my left out of the corner of my eye, and I felt their eyes on me. I didn't look, but somehow I knew it was him. My heart started beating really fast. I texted my friend and I told her I felt really sketched out. I wanted to believe that I was misreading things and I was just letting anxiety get the best of me, but I couldn't shake the feeling. 30 minutes or so later, she gets off. As we walked towards the parking garage stairs to get to our car, I saw him sitting on a bench, waiting for me. The benches aren't super close to the elevators. They are closer to the restaurant, if anything. The second I spotted him, my blood ran cold. He saw us walking towards the stairs to the parking garage and started running towards us. I was face to face with him by the time we got to the top of the stairs. We booked it back to the restaurant and used the employee elevator to get to her car, and an employee escorted us to the car as well. The employee told us that there are a lot of cases of homeless people who walk around the restaurants, so I presume he was homeless and just walking in and out of restaurants until he saw me. I'm incredibly thankful I trusted my gut and that I saw him. I don't know what would have happened to us if I didn't see him at first, but I don't want to find out. To this stranger, let's not meet. And TLDR, too long did not read, a man attempted to approach me multiple times while I was at the bar alone. He waited for me on a bench and chased me to the parking garage when he saw me walk out of the bar. I'm on mobile, so I apologize if the formatting is shit. And please ignore the typo on the title. And edit to add. 6 hours isn't that long? Come on, that's what you're focused on?
I can't believe everyone is talking about the shaft length. Is that really what everyone talking about? That's wild. That's utterly ridiculous. I'm sorry you had to go through that though. It's good you are aware of your surroundings though, and we're able to maneuver it in a way where nothing happened to you. It's crazy to me what guys will do, especially the ones who never get laid, to try to talk to a girl when the girls most definitely aren't interested. I'm sorry that happened to you. Looking to getting a small teaser that you can use for self-defense. If I happened to work night shift while I was employed in law enforcement, I would actually walk female, male, and bar employees to their cars if I was the area just to make sure they weren't accosted. There was one Saturday night I was actually off duty at a party at the club across my bar I used to go to. I went across the street because I knew a friend was working there. I was told she just left and was walking to her car, so I wandered over towards the parking lot. Happened to step past the corner and saw her pressed against the wall in fear from the big deer who was looming over her. And I walked up and I asked what was going on, while obviously pulling my shield from under my shirt. The guy says my badge turns and run. And I helped my friends to her car and told her the next time she needs to text me when she is leaving. No exceptions. I don't care what day it is and what time it is. They end.